Hello, listeners, and welcome back to this new episode. I am absolutely thrilled to have a guest today. It's not something that I do often. And when I do, it's because I am so inspired by the person, by what she has accomplished, and of course, by her message. And it's because I also think that it's going to add a lot of value to you as my listener. And so today I am thrilled to have Corinne Briaud. In a minute, I'm going to have her introduce herself, but we are going to be talking also about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is aging powerfully, staying healthy, and all of the benefits that it has, not only for individuals, but also for companies. And just women aging is such an important topic. So I'm so happy to have Corinne here today. So Corinne, welcome. And why don't you
Thank
briefly
you.
introduce yourself?
Yes, I will do that. So I'm thrilled to be here because we are going to talk about a topic which is very, very close to my heart, which is Healthspan and women in leadership, right? So I've got that great belief that health is our greatest asset, and it's really been guiding my life and my career for the last 20 years. I've been working in big corporate, on women's health for more than 15 years now, whether it was on personal care, intimate hygiene, medical devices, painkillers, and supplements and skincare as well. And all really thinking, how can I improve daily life for women, but also, also men. So it's been gaining my whole career, big corporates, senior leadership roles, also going through what most women go through, which is managing a career, managing your life, your kids, your parents, and your health. And I've learned really that you need to manage your health as if it's an asset, not only because it's an asset that's going to help you, live your life for longer, but also it's an asset from a leadership perspective. And so super happy to be here, super happy to be talking about that and sharing my insights. I'm working now as a consultant, so I've got my own consultancy firm, which is dedicated to startups and scale-ups which are playing in the health industry or consumer health industry. Um, and I'm also leading an initiative which is not yet officialized, but which is dedicated to helping women improve their health span. So we can talk more about it later, but real topic close to my heart.
Okay, great. Thank you. So why don't we just start off? We'll dive right in to and tell us what is the definition of health span? Because it's something, of course, that we hear more and more about, but I'm not sure yet it's very mainstream for a lot of people. So tell us what your definition is and how you perceive that.
Yes, so I think everyone knows about lifespan, which is the number of years you live, right? Super simple. I think health span, the difference is that it's the number of years you're going to live living healthy. So, and it's a big difference, right? If I just give a number, for example, for women, we know that they might live to 80, 85 years old, depending on the countries. So that's their lifespan, right? But the number of years they are going to live in poor health might be about 10 to 15 years. So it means that their health span, in fact, might be only 70 years. So that's the big difference between the two, right? So again, important to make the difference.
Tell us for you personally, why is it such an important topic?
I think to your point, people don't think about health until they are sick. And I think when you put that into the concept of health at work or health throughout your career, you're not going to take care of it till you might experience burnout or till you have so much stress that you're going to be having an impact on your personal life, right? And so I think health is really something that is not really looked yet at an asset that you need to cultivate, but it's important. There's a few numbers which came out, from McKinsey lately, which is about the fact that women in senior leadership roles at 42% say that they feel they are experiencing burnout, right? It's a very big number, in fact. And so we know that, burnout will lead to issues which will be physical and mental, and which impact, in fact, the role of women in their career. If you go to a meeting and you have mental, you experience a foggy brain, you're not going to be able to make a decision. And that decision may impact the project you work on, but it may impact as well the way people see you, the way people perceive your leadership, and hence it might impact your career as well.
Okay, it's true, and it's not something I think that people, automatically think of, or even and until also I think that you've lived it. It's not something that, I mean, the way that I've seen it, or my experience with a lot of people I've worked with, is people just push through. So they don't actually take the time to ask themselves, is this a problem? Or how is this affecting me or affecting those around me or my career? And they do push through. And we know, like you said, the statistics are in terms of burnout and just stress
Yeah.
are extremely high.
I think it's interesting, right? Most you, with one, you hear a lot about resilience, right, in companies, and many times resilience is about, as you say, Karen, pushing through. And as a leader, I've always been thought that resilience is linked to achievement, performance, and all of that. So, in many ways, very often we think resilience is linked to grit, and grit takes a lot of, it takes a toll on your health in a way. Very, not a long time ago, I read one thing, which is resilience, is not grit, it's recovery. And I thought that was very thought provoking. Um, I think, we, as human beings, but also as people who work in company, don't put the recovery concept, in our way of thinking, right? So we push grit, but we don't think about recovery. And I think here it's something super important. If one example of recovery is managing sleep. Sleep is one of the most important pillars for your health. Um, of course, you may not have the luxury to have 8 hours of sleep per day, but if you have less than 6 hours of sleep per day, there's some, in fact, insights about that which are it's as if you have drunk alcohol, right? The way your brain is impacted is the same thing, right? So imagine again, you put yourself, in a work environment, you walk into a meeting, you haven't had enough sleep, you haven't recovered well. Again, your decision is impacted, and of course, your physical health is impacted.
So the reason why I love also that we're having this conversation is because people don't realize it. I think that when you're so in like the day to day, which it can be exciting and exhilarating, and there's always that adrenaline hit of things that are going on at work. But until you take a step back and until you actually ask yourself kind of what is going on or why that's happening, I think that it's just such a people just don't see it. And so, thank you for also for putting it out there. I love the idea about recovery. And so tell me, what do you think? Like, what are the cultural shifts or the systemic shifts that are needed in the workplace, maybe to recognize and support, maybe to recognize what's going on and those examples that you just given, and support women's health span as an asset for companies?
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Again, it's linked to the way people are assessed in companies, right? We are assessed based on performance, and performance is achievement. Performance is pushing through very often, right? It's about achieving objectives, which have to be quantified, hitting your project timelines, launching a product in time, increasing your sales, and all that, right? So I think there's no, if you think about it, there is no metric in any way you're assessed in a company which is linked to your health long term, which is linked to managing, in fact, your ability to think clearly or to be, coming to work in a physical shape that's going to help you stay awake for the full day, for example. So there is no metric. I think it's interesting. It's probably linked to a very short-term view of companies most of the time because they need, most of them have shareholders. They need to deliver, a great profit. So it's linked really on pushing through. There's now what you can see now in some companies are some roles like chief health officers coming out. I think it's interesting. I think there's a company called Ineos in Switzerland which has launched that kind of role. It's a very big company, and interestingly, they are sponsoring some athletes as well. So it's a whole mindset that they are putting together. If you think, how do we, is there a way that this kind of metric can be included now? So that's one part. The other part as well is we know, especially for women, that they having a conversation about how you feel, from a health perspective with your colleagues or HR, all of that is not something you do, right, very often. And a lot of women, when they get to their 40s, which is a critical time, in fact, in their career, where they might be able to access senior leadership roles, but they also face perimenopause as well, which is, impacting them. It can be brain fog, it can be hot flashes, it can be many ways. That's also a time maybe when their kids are starting to leave the house. That's also a time when they may have to take care of their aging parents. So there's a lot coming onto the woman, and they don't have a space in companies where they are to talk about that. Right? So the other aspect, I think, is to think, is there a way to create a safe place in the company where they can talk, they can share with other women their issues, HR, whatever it is, but to help them really talk about it. Because again, I think and it's both for women and men, right? But there's some numbers about the level of productivity if your employees are healthy, right? I think it's McKinsey again, which released some numbers last year about the fact that companies which invest into health for their employees have a productivity level higher by 21%. So it's not just for the employees and how they feel at work. It's really for the benefit of the companies as well.
And do you think, it's not but do you think that there's a shift going on in companies? Because like you say, we've all been there. You need to hit your numbers. You need to reduce costs. You need to, get, shareholder value. Are there some companies that are maybe leading the way in how they think about it and how they are investing? Is it a trend that you see happening even a little bit?
It's interesting here, right? I think some companies have been trying to lead the way. I'm thinking about, companies like Google, Meta, all of that, putting in place some environment where, whether it's men or women, they could relax at work, right? And whether it was installing some little pods to swim, or it was about having, crash on site, or, all these kind of services or, moments or sports people could be playing at work, right? I don't know. It's interesting, right? Now, I don't really know whether it's been truly effective. We see now, some of these companies going back on some of the measures they've been putting in place, whether it's about diversity, inclusion, and all that, which has an impact on health for employees. So there's been companies which have been at the forefront of that. Most, I would say, probably due to the current situation. We are in a crisis. We have recovered maybe from COVID, but at the same time, there's political crisis, economic crisis, all of that. So in that current context, um, I'm not sure companies are prioritizing that. They are going for, making their numbers again and pushing the employees. I don't know. I see. So in big corporates, there's a question mark here, to be honest. They know long term they have to invest into some corporate program. So that's a long term thinking. I think at the moment, I think the jury is a bit out on what's happening. Probably in smaller companies, maybe that's where you can see a shift, which is very interesting, with trying to create a culture, trying to attract the young generation as well. And I think maybe that's where you can find some, I would say, focus on that. You have, some companies which are the companies like Café Joyeux, these kind of companies which are driven by purpose. And there, I think definitely health is at the center of what they do for their employees. So some, yes.
Okay. And so let's talk about you a little bit, and just curious about if you can share some examples about how investing in your own health span has impacted your leadership, your energy, decision making, resilience, you already talked about, but you've held very senior positions, big international companies. So tell us a little about yourself and what you did.
So I think I'm not different from many others, right? I didn't realize health or, the concept of health span for a very long time. So I had to go through a health crisis to realize that, which is interesting, right? I was working in the UK in a global role, and my kids were very young, had no family nearby to take care of them. So lots of pressure on me from a personal perspective. And it was a new role as well. So lots of things together, right? And so what I sacrificed at that time was, in fact, not eating properly. So I was basically either skipping lunch or I was going for sandwiches and all of that. The impact on my health was first physical. So, in fact, I discovered that I had some biliary issues. So that was the immediate impact. But also, it impacted my relationship with my husband as well. So I was extremely frustrated, extremely stressed. So I had to go through a kind of crisis to really realize that I was not investing in my health, or I was definitely doing everything to, in fact, reduce the pillars of longevity for me. So that was the moment I thought, okay, I need to do something. It's difficult to change, right? Because you have to really think holistically. It's not like you have to change just one thing, right? You have to really think about how I'm going to think about my sleep, my nutrition. I'm going to think about my exercise as well. The relationship I have with others, because it's super important as well. And when you are in a new role, when you're super stressed, you may not see your friends at all, or you may see them just, once a month, maybe. How do I make sure that I'm working on my cognitive health long term as well, which is not about just, doing the work, but it's about also reading, more, for example. So I had to really think about all of that. And it's difficult. You have to think holistically. So I started with small steps, to be honest, because, and I chose one thing, which is exercise. because I think for me it was very important to help with physical health, but also mental health. And I've always, when I was a kid, I always loved, going to and play team sports, right? So I had to find something, and I picked up, in fact, CrossFit, which is an interesting sport. Most people think it's very rough, which in fact it is if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. And I went there, of course, for building my strength, which worked very well, but also because of a community spirit. So by doing, that sport, I achieved, in fact, also, making new friends and being able to talk and do it. So that's what I did. And then I also, when my kids were older and slept through the night, I tried really to make sure I had 8 hours of sleep per night, always. So that's the way I started, and I think the journey is still there. I think it's you have to be extremely in a way. I'm going to say that it's every day, right? So
Yeah.
it's not a one-off, and I think sticking to it is the hardest thing, to be honest. There's days where I'm not exercising and I feel it, and I feel frustrated as well. So no, I mean, it's really an effort every day.
And would you say, though, that it becomes part of, because you held senior roles, and to be able to still exercise, even if it's not every single day, but to like, how did you manage that and make it a priority?
So it's interesting, right? And that's a big difference between men and female, I think, right? I At work, I was seeing a lot of senior male leaders practicing golf, going to play tennis and all of that. I was thinking, how come they have time to do that, given the roles they have, right? And then I realized that these guys were really making the time. What it meant is that they were saying, at 6 o'clock, I'm leaving work and I'm going to play tennis, or, today I'm going to play golf. Maybe I'm taking a day off and I'm going to do that. And I was like, okay, so if they can do it, why can't we do it? Right? As women usually don't think they can do it, right? Because the reality is you have to juggle many things. That's true during the day. Most often you have to take care of the kids, or your day starts way earlier than you go to work. It might start at 6 in the morning because you have to wake up, get ready, and then make breakfast for the kids, get kids to school, all that. So your day is really packed. But I think there's also something that we don't do very well, which is thinking about ourselves as well, and thinking about prioritizing one moment during the day where you're going to think, I'm doing that for my health. So it's really tough. The first time I did it and I left work, it was 6 o'clock, and I left my team, which was still there. I was like, oh, how can I, the feeling was, it was really tough. You're the leader, there's this whole thing, being French, there's this whole thing of you have to stay at work and people have to see you, otherwise, blah, blah, blah. I did it. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. And so I think mentally you have to make the shift of, I can carve out 1 hour per day for me. I can do it. A lot of people, a lot of men can do it. Senior leaders do it. In fact, it's one of their success criteria. So think about it. I think you can do it. If you can't do 1 hour, start at least with 20, 30 minutes. But do it. I mean, now, if we think about it as well, we spend, unfortunately, a lot of time on our phones, right? Looking at social media, all of that. I mean, if you, I've been looking sometimes at, how much time I'm spending on that. And like, what if that time was used to do more sports, to go outside, to talk to my friends and all of that? So when we say we don't have time, I think sometimes it's not true. It's just that we don't allocate the time for it.
I would agree. I can only agree 100% because it is a choice. And
Yes.
and the people that I work with, I encourage them to put themselves first. It's what
Yes.
I've always say is you cannot pour from an empty cup, and it is not selfish. And and I hope people that are listening to this will also have a little shift in mindset that it's also about prevention. And because, like you said, for you, it was a crisis. For a lot of people, it is, but there are ways to avoid that. And I think just like you say, it's upfront, it may seem difficult, but I personally have no issue putting myself first. Now, because it's become a habit and because it's
It's
also
become a habit.
important.
Yes.
It's a habit, it's a choice up front. It's a choice, like you say, on how to spend your time. I think one thing that's, and I'd love your opinion on this, but it makes it easier in air quotes today, is that we are working from home a little bit more. And so
Yes.
if we're saving also time on transportation, that is time that you don't have to be working. That there are getting out for a walk or lifting weights or doing your favorite class or whatever. I think it is so important. Do you find it a little easier now with work routines and work from home that's completely shifted in the world?
Yes. I just think you have to be super careful not to spend that time working. I think it's interesting, right? When we all went through that, right? When COVID hit, we were at home and we had to work from home. And I think I never worked so much during the day because I was in front of my computer and we had all these meetings and no one knew how to work from home. And so we were spending hours sitting in front of the computer. And I was like, hey, that can't continue. I think that people are getting more into the habit of how do I really, split my day if I work from home between working and doing something else. Again, the point is how do you prioritize yourself
Yeah.
for these little moments, right? Because mothers, who have young kids, they may use that time to take care of the kids, right? They might use that time, and you will understand that, right? But think about the concept, which I've always, again, I had the realization one day about what it meant. The whole concept of the oxygen mask in the plane, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. They tell you, okay, you have to put the mask on you first before you put it on the others. Because if you don't do that, in fact, you might put it on the others or you may fail because you're lacking oxygen and you will die and maybe the others will die. And I think it took me time, well, not time, but I had that haha moment to realize how that concept can be, used for thinking about your health every day, right? And I really think it's exactly the same thing. So yes, to your point, people, now we are more used maybe to carve out time during the day, but I think still it has to become a habit because otherwise you may use your phone or you may go in front of your computer or you may do something for someone else.
Oh. And for the women listening, would you suggest that, you've mentioned sleep, you've mentioned, some kind of physical activity. Is there a better place to start, you think? If they needed to make one change, what would it be?
Sleep, clearly. I think it's interesting. It's in France, there's this bizarre saying, which is like, I'll sleep when I'll be dead, right? Which is this is the most stupid saying you can think of, to be honest. Because in fact, sleep is really the foundation of your health. The other day I was reading an article which was about the, evolution of, mankind. And there was this thing about why over the thousand of years humans still need to sleep 8 hours per day, right? They have evolved in many ways, but they still need that. And I think in that article, they said, well, it's because sleep is crucial for you not only to rest physically, but also from a brain perspective, for the brain and neurons to be recharged and for it to function well the next day. And so if you have to change one thing is making sure that you have enough sleep. You will see the impact on your, the way you wake up in the morning, and also, so physically, but also mentally. The fog you may have if you don't have enough sleep is immense. So yeah, sleep first. Yeah.
Okay. So if there's any advice that you could give just to companies looking to, embed women's health and longevity into their leadership development or talent strategies, what is just even one or two very simple things that they could do? Because there's a lot of leadership programs now for women. There's a lot of mentoring, women in leadership. But it's true, this topic, like all of the topics I always see are, conflict management and,
yes, absolutely.
time management and which are, I'm not saying those are not important topics, but Healthspan is never a topic, or rarely. I don't want to say never, because I do work with a company, and actually the Women in Leadership program that they have with their clients is through the axis of, or the angle of, work-life balance, and health is one of them. But so, yeah, coming back to my question, that was a long way around to say, yeah, if companies wanted to, put health and longevity into leadership development or talent strategies, what could they do?
So I think it's interesting, right? It's going to be a big shift for companies. So I would try to put in place a couple of things, maybe which, are very targeted. And when I say targeted, I would say that there's if we think women, we know that around the age of 40, right, women start to experience, hormonal changes and all that, big changes in their life. And that's the moment in the companies when they also think, okay, am I going to continue? Am I going to apply for these senior leadership roles? That's the moment when, from a health perspective, they are, I would say, things could go super well, could go super wrong. So I would think that I would target within my company these women at this critical moment of their time in the company, of their career. And I would put in place a program first, probably like the whole opportunity to have groups when they can chat, they can exchange, they can learn from each other, because community for women is absolutely critical. By the way, it's been demonstrated that now our brain doesn't function the same way as men, especially from a community perspective. We need more that than men, which is interesting. So having that in place is, I think, really critical, because it's going to help from a Healthspan perspective. These women can talk and get advice and all of that. So, and I would put in place as well potentially some support program. It could be like, at work, how can they benefit from, yoga classes, whatever classes from a physical perspective it could be, right? So, but really pinpoint that critical moment. I know it might sound a bit like exclusive for the others, but it's a critical moment because we also know it's the moment when women can quit a company. So you have a loss, in fact, of talents at that time. And okay, companies might think I can replace them, but the reality is that it's going to cost them money. And replacing talent is not that always easy, right? So I think from an economic perspective, a company can lose a lot of money. So it's better to keep these women as well. So that's the one thing. And the other thing as well is I would, again, put some metrics into the KPIs leaders have, right? And senior leaders especially, right? The ones who have to report to an executive team, the executive team itself, which has to report to the board, right? So it should go up to the boardroom, in fact, looking at these metrics, because we know decisions are made also at that level, right? So I think these would be the two things I would put in place. Yeah.
Okay, great. Is there anything, I mean, we've talked about a lot of subjects today. Is there anything before we start to wrap up that we haven't touched on that you would love to either come back to or expand upon?
I would say it's just the again, how the concept of you taking care of your health span doesn't start when you have a crisis. It starts in your 20s, it starts in your 30s. It's never too late to start, but think about it really early, because again, it's it's life is it's a marathon, right? And we know that women suffer from a lot of diseases, in fact, whether it's autoimmune disease, whether it's heart issues, whether it's diabetes, whether it's cognitive issues like Alzheimer, either more than men or differently than men. And most of these diseases, in fact, can be reduced or prevented if you start putting in place your pillars of longevity in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s. And all of that, of course, has an impact on your career, right? So, I mean, think about it early. That's the message that I would like to give. Talk to others as well. So, get advice. There's a lot of things, you can find a lot of information, of course, now, but try to get the source of information from experts, and try to make sure that you verify the source really, really stringently in a way, right? Because again, there's lots of advices. One day you're told you should be fasting, the next day you're told you should not be fasting. So get the information from the experts on that.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about your event that's coming up. You mentioned it in the introduction, but it is something that I think this world needs. So tell us all about that.
Yeah. So we are, so I've met through my work, a woman who's Swedish, who's based now in New York City, and we've become friends. It was through work, but we became friends. And in fact, we are building a collective which is about helping women improve their health span, right? And so that collective is really based on the community concept, and community that concept is going to be in fact taking form with events. So we're going to have a first launch event on June 11th in New York City, and we're going to have another launch event in Switzerland on October 11th, right? And the idea is that we are going to bring together, it's a 100% female-founded, female-led initiative. We're going to bring together female experts, so doctors, scientists, who are, the latest and greatest in the thinking of health span for women. We are going to put together as well. They will be joined by also some great innovators in the field, startups, big companies, and of course, it's for the woman as well. So it's open to public. That's the idea, right? And the idea is that we are going to give them the opportunity to understand how they can build the pillars of longevity for themselves. So it's going to be education, tools, workshops, one full day in New York, an evening in New York, and one full day in Switzerland.
Okay, so tell us, how could listeners connect with you, follow you, get more information on that or on what you do?
So we are going to launch the whole thing very shortly. So probably third week, fourth week of May, you're going to be able to start seeing us on social media and on LinkedIn as well. We are going to advertise as well through some other platforms. So that's mainly the way you're going to be able to see about us. The name of the collective is Longer, Longher. And so you can find us, yeah, on social media maybe.
Okay, and I'll put all of the links in the show notes also because this episode will be coming out probably beginning of June. And so by the
Perfect.
time that this comes out, it will be launched. So this has been wonderful. This is such an important topic because also as we wind down here, it's my story was similar to yours in the fact that you kind of, you want to do everything and you want to have a great career, but there's some kind of crisis that comes in, and just that recognizing how important those different pillars are in your life and how it can contribute. And especially now, so I'm 55, I'm just putting that out there. I've said it all the time. And I feel 40 or even younger. And so it is also completely possible, which is also why, Corinne, I wanted to have you on because you are also an example. And I think that it's just to show other women that it is 100% possible to build an amazing career, to have kids, to take care of your health. Yes, there are choices that need to be made, and there is an awareness around the topic, but it is 100% possible. So any
Absolutely.
parting words? Would you agree with that?
Your chronological age doesn't matter. What matters is your biological age. And the way you're going to take care of your biological age is to think about health span. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Loved our
Thank you.
conversation. And listeners, I'll put everything in the show notes. We'll speak
Thank you
soon.
very much.